Cactus Jack talking to The Rock asks him not to call Big Show a jabroni. It's like your dad coming over like, could you be nice?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you think about it, The Rock is kind of being a heel right now, but the crowd is eating it up.
It's the age of the tweener.
It's the last Raw before the Royal Rumble. Welcome to Tales from the Attitude Era.
Wow. So exciting. Wow.
I am excited. I'm very excited for this Rumble. It's Rob Pasbani here as always, joined by my co-host, the former head writer of WWE during this Attitude Era period, which we are reviewing, Tommy Blacha. Welcome, Tommy.
Yeah. What's happening? I'm in Atlanta, WCW country.
You're down south.
Yeah. Just for this special episode. No, just happened to be here, but.
Today we're reviewing the Raw from January 17th in the year 2000.
Yep.
From New Haven, Connecticut. And New Haven always seems to be a go-to spot for WWE. It's right by New York. It's next door.
It's next to Stamford. It's the closest one. It's like a home field advantage, so to speak.
Easy drive.
Looking forward to these just because it was like, ooh, New York, Connecticut, like not a lot of travel. Although a lot of the boys were in Tampa, so they're always traveling. But for us, it was like pretty easy. So that was fun.
And did you kind of see this as a little bit of a homecoming too? You know, you've been working hard for 3 or 4 months. Got a big show at the Garden. Did you invite some friends?
Oh yeah, we'll get into that. The
yeah,
Rumble.
We'll talk about it for the Rumble. Yeah,
boy, this was one of probably my favorite pay-per-views of all time, personally, for what happened, because this was starting the apex. I don't know if it was the apex, but there was so many fucking celebrities there. This is when you really noticed, like, in the New York show was like, holy shit, like people wanted tickets, and then just like going down, and we'll get into it when we get into the Rumble. But yeah, it was certainly a homecoming. Yeah.
The reason it's interesting because, you know, things are on the up and up in WWF. And as I like to do, I like to check in with the Wrestling Observer for the week. Yes. And this is the week in WCW where everything went to shit.
Yeah.
This is where basically Vince Russo quit the company, where Bret Hart found out he had a concussion, a career-ending concussion, and could no longer wrestle. So they lost their top guy. They lost their writer. They put Kevin Sullivan back in charge of writing, who had a lot of heat, which is wrestling parlance for, you know, bad vibes with the boys. And the top guys in WCW, namely guys like Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Barry Saturn, Shane Douglas, and Conan, did not want to work with Kevin Sullivan, did not want him on top. Because he was on top during the NWO era, and they felt that, like, you know, he showed favoritism to his guys and not them, and they're blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
And Chris Benoit had, like, the day before this show, walked out of WCW after being given the world title, or being awarded, whatever, written to win the world title. So things are about to get crazy in the wrestling world.
Yeah. And here's what was fun, being a total like behind the scenes guy, and you're thinking like, oh, we know, I got my finger on the pulse of what's happening, but then sometimes you fucking don't. So you don't know how much subterfuge or nefarious activity is happening with influencing these guys and their agents and Jim Ross, talent relations, and Vince McMahon, because I don't know exactly. I have to get with Gortz, but I remember being in Stamford exactly when this happened. But just as we were like, okay, things are going and we know what's happening, and going into the gym at Stamford, and lo and behold, it's Dean Malenko, Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and Perry Saturn just in the gym at Stamford, and we're just like, holy fuck, what are these guys doing here? And then I guess
yeah.
And that thing just doesn't happen like that. So there's things that are happening sometimes, even though you're like, well, I'm really like, head writer, so to speak. And then like, oh, fuck, I don't know anything that's going on. Or, there's always shit going on, so. Huge.
So also interestingly in the Observer, they mentioned that WWE sent feelers to Kevin Nash that if he's interested in coming over, they would take him. But then there was also a note in there about how other people backstage think that Nash is a cancer and that he would kill the vibe in the locker room and not to bring him.
Well, ultimately, and like, well, putting out feelers when I don't want to speak for Kevin Nash, but I think part of it was like, and I work 2 days a week and make this fucking wage.
Yeah. That's the thing that was so weird. Yeah, I never understood the WWE narrative of like he wanted to go for more money to work less. Could you believe that? Like, yeah, what a
less travel, less shows, more money. What a coward. He's not into this into like fuck.
The other interesting note was that they were talking with Savage, but Savage wanted more money than they were willing to offer at the time, which I think is not an issue anymore. But that's crazy to think, like, what would Savage be like in the Attitude Era? You know, like I think he would fit in because he's just the greatest. But
sure,
like how would him and Austin or him and The Rock, you know, like these exchanges would be crazy.
It'd be great.
Yeah,
I imagine. Yeah, it wouldn't. Yeah, I think it'd be great.
So let's get into the Raw. It's Martin Luther King Day, and Vince McMahon loves Martin Luther King Day. Like I'm not even being an asshole here. Like every year, I feel like they always did a very good tribute, despite the content you might sometimes see on the programming. I believe he said that Martin Luther King was his hero. Which is
he's that's the demographic. That's his constituency.
Yeah.
He's being put it that way. If you want to be like cynical, but other than that, maybe
Yeah, I guess he was of the time. That was his generation when that was happening.
Sure.
And Ross teases an update on Steve Austin's neck injury. We got a big update later in the show. A great recap of the excellent Cactus Jack Triple H moment from SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I keep saying this every week now, but like everything is just working on all cylinders. Everyone is so in the pocket.
Right.
Every department
dialed in.
Yeah, dialed in, exactly. Show starts with Cactus Jack coming out with the Cactus Jack entrance theme, not the Mankind car crash entrance theme. And gone is the silly, tattered white button down, and instead is the serious blue flannel.
Yeah.
and the Cactus Jack shirt. And he is very serious here. Like it's a different persona that he's putting across. I like that. Again, you're doing a great job of reintroducing Cactus to newer fans that might not have seen him a few years back when he came back in 97 for the one night only match against Triple H when they were feuding, when they were both lower on the card. And he came back for a Raw at Madison Square Garden, which I had attended as a wee youth. I remember that was my first live Raw. I remember my friend snuck down to the like the floor seats and got by the aisle, and he was like trying to goad me to come with him, and I was like, oh no, I can't, they're gonna kick us out. And he basically spent the whole time down there. and I'm like, why didn't I do that? I was like up in the 200s or whatever,
especially when they have just like the hockey boards, all you got to do is wait for the guy to walk this way for a second.
Yeah. Big regret for me. Still to this day, clearly all these years later, 30 years later, I'm still thinking about it. Anyway, Cactus Jack cuts a great promo selling the match. It's the final sell because the Rumble is this Sunday. And he basically says, there's no way a normal man could take all the punishment you give Triple H and walk out. And there's my secret. I'm no normal man.
All right.
Cactus says he loves Mankind and that the fans accepted him, but he says the fun and laughing is over. And what I want right now is just a little piece of your ass tonight. And Lawler goes, what? I want a little piece. He's like, I don't care about the world title. If you have any testicular fortitude, come out right now and just fight me. Triple H comes out. He says that Mick Foley, the person, actually hates Cactus Jack because Cactus Jack, he gets so sadistic that a part of Mick Foley dies a little inside.
Yeah.
The difference between you and me, Triple H says, is when I get that sadistic, I love every second of it.
Yeah. Pretty good little psychological maneuvering there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to like make fun of Mrs. Foley's little boy. Right. Pretty good.
Yeah, like really get to like start get him to question himself.
Yes. It makes sense too for a good heel thing because I remember talking about it. It's pretty good. It's just like, yeah, Triple H, ultimately, you're not likable. And if people think, yeah, you are deep down shitty, but underneath Cactus Jack is still a hero, but good stuff.
Yeah, I
Good
thought
stuff.
that was a good angle for Triple H to take. And really, I mean, like, you've been kind of pushing this angle now for almost 2 months. You know, it's been a while since the last pay-per-view. I think this is a longer trend. Like, this was like 6 weeks, it felt.
Yeah.
Because of the new year. You kind of took an extra week or two. So
Yeah. Why
you only
today?
got to slow it down.
Yeah.
So there's only so much you could say. So this was a nice little twist to bring it home. Triple H says he will come down to fight, but he won't come alone. DX joins him, and Cactus Jack, showing no fear, gets out of the ring and runs up and tries to attack all 4 members of DX. A great little moment for Cactus. The crowd immediately breaks into Rocky chants. Rock comes down. Big Show comes down and cuts off the Rock. Does not allow him to make the save, which I thought was really cool. And then you hear dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
and it's the Acolytes. And what
Don't
a
forget
great
that yeah.
what a great moment to set them up to be like the ass kickers. I was about to say ass kissers. The ass kickers here to like save the day. Like, that was a great setup for them.
To me too, I just shout out to Jim Johnson, all that music, but like, you know, how it's so important. You see these, like, you know, the Crash and Austin's music, whatever, you know, that signifier that just lights people up. You know, and it often, you know, sometimes I would tell people, like, look at the very first Austin appearance when they had the it was like, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? It didn't have that impact. So it all has to be built on something. And this was the time that really the song and the and that fucking, you know, wailing fucking whammy bar really hit, like, oh, okay, that sound means holy fuck, these guys. And it just gelled, for lack of a better term, right there. For me, I was like, oh, now every time we hear dun, 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 everyone's like, oh, no, you know, this doesn't happen. You know, it has to be built. And, you know, the moment has to happen like organically, sort of, you know, be pushing.
Yeah, I think with WWE, a lot of it is repetition, too. You have to train your audience to.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so it's a great schmoz to start the show. Kind of a different, this almost felt like a closing show angle at the top of the show. And it makes sense with the Rumble.
Well, in a way, this whole show to me was very old school studio wrestling, in the sense where, you know, forever on TV, like the TV was just to advertise getting people to the live event. You know what I mean? And this was kind of like that when you had the pay-per-view coming up. Obviously, the Raws and SmackDowns were their own events. But this was one where it'd be like, there's going to be a lot of schmozzes. There's going to be a lot of things because we're selling the pay-per-view. We're selling the pay-per-view. We're selling the pay-per-view. So to me, there's a little artistic license to be like, you know, I know clean finished smart marks are going to be disappointed, but got to think in the long term that this is all for the pay-per-view.
Absolutely.
Especially a Royal Rumble, which frankly, this really, we kind of like got caught a little short-sighted. And, you know, Royal Rumbles are like, if you're not talking about who's going to win and there's no stakes kind of like for it, it's kind of like, well, we better get everyone in there, you know, so it just doesn't seem like, you know, so at least there's some like, oh, the Acolytes mixed it up with them, just to give a little taste of them all mixing it up and getting pissed at each other over something. So the Rumble, like all these storylines can happen, as opposed to like, oh, we just had all these matches and now everyone's in the Rumble. Like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like I noticed that a lot. Like, there was really a lot of last minute pushes for a lot of for a bunch of the matches, which we'll get to. But also, in a way, I think it's good that you saved it for the last week, because if you had done this, you know, 2 weeks ago, you'd almost blow your load. and like, what would be left to pitch for the last week? Kick things off with a hardcore match with Test and Big Boss Man. We get a recap of the disintegration of the partnership between Boss Man and Albert. As Test comes out, there's another Taz teaser where you hear a little more of his voice. And the match starts out in the aisle. Boss Man attacks Test, takes off his nose protection. They go to the back. They end up in the men's bathroom. There's a, like, they're fighting. I
don't think I like the way you said. They end up in the men's bathroom.
The men's bathroom. I got, I guess this was parallel to that women's hardcore match a few weeks ago where they also ended up in the men's bathroom. And yet
I
again,
think you should say, and they fought in the aisle. They fought even into the bathroom.
Oh my God, they were in the men's bathroom.
They ended up into the men's bathroom. Like, what?
But I like that, like in the middle of this ass kicking that Test is giving Boss Man, he stops and postures up and is like, God, it stinks. And he opens the stall and he's like, flush that toilet. The man just loves that joke.
Oh, yeah. Fuck. In fairness, a lot of fights, I imagine, happen in bathrooms through the years, in bars and
Yeah.
And it's a despicable place to, I think they should have always had, he should have had a Grand Central Station bathroom match as opposed to they're always the boiler room. Yeah, the boiler room, sure. Those are Evil and Freddy in the boiler room, but they didn't have enough bathroom matches, in my opinion. My humble opinion.
We definitely need more of those.
Yeah.
So Test is bleeding from the nose again. They get back in the ring, and Boss Man, desperate, tries to use his nightstick, although it is legal since it's a hardcore match.
It's a gun legal. It's like a machete legal?
Yeah, a knife. Yeah, right. I guess you still have to follow the law. I
guess, yeah. An 80-pound guy won the hardcore title. Way had a sharp machete. Oh.
But yeah, so Bossman tries to use the nightstick. Test grabs the nightstick, hits Bossman, goes to the top rope, does a really cool flying elbow drop with the nightstick tucked into his elbow almost.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he faked that. That looks like if just 1 inch off, he could have really hurt the Bossman. But really cool finish, and Test wins the hardcore title.
Yeah.
This
the
testicle
herbicide has been sprayed.
Yes, I gotta say,
the herb is off.
Test's herb levels are greatly decreasing here.
Yes,
this is definitely some rehab for a very poor image for Test for the last few months.
Yep, and it's the incredible Boss Man who could go decades with doing the honors, getting it back, being he's the
Boss Man doesn't
man.
lose any stature by losing this match.
No, yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how Test does with the hardcore title. I don't quite remember him winning it, so this will be interesting for me. Backstage, Triple H says it's time to get revenge. Road Dogg and Billy Gunn are going to take on The Rock and Big Show tonight. And Triple H and X-Pac will soften up the Acolytes. X-Pac is not happy about this. He's like, oh, the Acolytes again? Might as well add Big Show into the match. He's sick of being beat up. And Stephanie reassures him, and everyone's basically bro, there's not going to be a match. We're just going to mess him up.
Right.
Backstage, Boss Man is talking to, I believe, Kevin Kelly, and blames Albert for his loss and vows to get revenge on Albert.
You need a bunch of B stories for that Royal Rumble.
Oh, I see. Godfather and DLo come out. I guess DLo's part of the Godfather package now. They're both dressed like pimps, and the ladies are with them.
The ladies train. But what's great is you can always since it's live too, be you don't say it, but then oh, let's just cut to someone. Oh, train.
Right.
Sign. Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely sense how you're sort of trying to be nicer, to be a little more, polite.
One might argue it's more insipid to be we call them, what is going on?
Yeah.
Whatever. It's impossible. It's just, that's what I loved about wrestling. So you just talk about it more, bring it up in I would love to have any kind of anchor man or woman to be the despicable or Mushnick is writing things in the post. It's just funny. You're yeah, that's right. Stir the pot.
They take on Edge and Christian. And once again, we're reminded that Edge is engaged to be married to Val Venus's sister. Yeah. It's a back and forth match at one point.
And that's a shoot, brother.
That's a shoot, brother.
Yeah.
Didn't last though, brother.
Oh, brother. But as of this moment, it's a shoot, brother.
It's a shoot. It happened. A lady gets on the apron for some reason and gets knocked down by Christian. Edge, being the polite gentleman walks over to check on her. I guess Christian is distracted enough for DLo to give Christian the lowdown for the win. Godfather gets on the mic, says he's not a player hater, so he's going to give the ladies to Edge, or I believe he said the hose this time. He's going to give the hose to Edge and Christian for the whole night. And the girls crowd around Edge, and he's like, no, I'm engaged. I'm engaged. And they kind of stalk him up the stage.
Yep.
It's interesting. I want to say for like the finish here, you did kind of a not so clean finish, but it didn't really need it. You know,
Right.
like you could have just given the DLo the clean win. Like, I think what is the aversion here? In this era, I'm just, it's more of a rhetorical thing, you know, of just a clean finish.
Well, whenever you're involving the Godfather, it's almost like, I don't know, he can absorb pinfalls. It's just like one of those odd things where like, so it's a strange finish.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
it's not a clean finish because there wasn't any interference really, but there's some shenanigans.
And just imagine this, the camera's panning, there's just thousands of youngsters are like, yeah, whatever, and the hose and whatever, and then a young Rob Pasbani like, I don't know about this. And then just back, and then so one out of every 400 not a clean fit. Excuse me. And camera pans fast. Mayhem, everyone's happy. And then you fall into that category of someone who's like, oh, not happy with that finish. Yeah. Coming back next week? Well, of course.
Right.
Watching? Yes. Buying the merch? Yes. Well, continuing to be disgruntled? Yes.
Yeah. Continuing to watch for 25 years? Yes. So backstage, Boss Man is in the midst of attacking Albert and throws Albert into the women's dressing room. Where Tori just happens to be there getting out of the shower. And it's almost comical now. Like, oh my God. Oh, you're disgusting. Get out of here. And so we know what's happening there. Kurt Angle comes out. We learn he has a match at the Royal Rumble against to be announced, TBA. It's a mystery opponent. And backstage, Triple H tells Stephanie he has a surprise for her. There's a knock at the door, and she asks if that's the surprise. He says no. It's Tori. She storms in. She goes, Prince Albert. And Stephanie cuts her off like, you got it. Prince Albert, Kane, get out of here. Which I thought was so good. Then she's like, yeah, we get it. You know, like guys looking at you.
Yeah, it's a strange angle that just kind of like naturally weirdly developed where it's like, what's happening? I guess she's histrionic and manipulative and weird and Kane. Just like run
I'm
with it.
I'm surprised how long it's going. Like I remembered it being much shorter than it was. I guess after the Rumble, you're going to pay it off.
Yeah. Well, and also it just kind of like dabbled here and there. And then Kane is one of those, part of it was just to like, how can Kane absorb things that aren't clean finishes? Because he's just such a spectacle. Mm-hmm. He's so amazing and huge. And like, it's a good way to keep him a little confused and off track because he's such a monster. He could fucking beat anyone, supposedly. So like, let's get him confused in those things. And then we can, you know, kind of dole him out slower, you know, for his appearances, if that makes sense a little.
Yeah.
Because if you put him in the mix, it's like, oh shit, he's got to destroy people, right?
So then Kurt Angle's out in the ring. He says he has a mystery opponent tonight as well. He says whoever it is, Kurt will use the 3 eyes to beat him. The mystery opponent happens to be Steve Blackman. Stephanie is pissed. She goes like, you SO. Triple H goes, whoa, calm down that McMahon temper. Can't say B. It's a back and forth match. Not much to it. In the end, the British Bulldog returns. We haven't seen him in a few weeks. Comes out, grabs Blackman's kendo stick, and low blows Blackman. Kurt Angle uses the moment to get the Olympic slam and the win. Stephanie gloats backstage, and now Triple H says he's the one whose temper is about to explode. I like the slow burn of this Triple H Kurt Angle feud, and I feel like we haven't even seen Kurt and Triple H, I believe, in the same room Maybe once we've seen it, but like it's a one-sided feud because Kurt Angle doesn't know he's in this feud.
Exactly, which makes him, he's just so easy to put into things because he's so great because it's like, oh my God, he's like the second coming of Bob Backlund in a way, like totally super capable, but kind of howdy doody-ish and, and even better. And then especially with someone like Stephanie's like, oh, I've got a real crush on him. And he doesn't even, he's just so vacuous and vapid. And it just like weirdly works. It's just like, and especially when you have those long shows and these huge fucking rosters to have someone that's like, God, that's such a unique fucking heel. Especially at this time when you were being like, oh, you need heels, but there's tweeners, you know what I mean? So it's like the anti-hero, like, fuck, well, what do? Austin's a baby face, sort of, who acts like a, so you're, but like suddenly then you got, holy fuck, Angle. He's basically an 80s baby face that is now perceived as a heel in a way. It's, and just like, oh, how fucking unique and refreshing and awesome. Yeah. Top 5 of all time, Kurt Angle.
Absolutely. Yeah. And always delivered in the ring.
Yeah.
Backstage, Big Show says he doesn't like The Rock. He doesn't like being called a jabroni or the big jabroni. He said he's going to go to the Rumble, win the Rumble, go to WrestleMania and take his title back. And he says tonight, all The Rock has to do is stay on the apron and stay out of my way. Good promo from Big Show and good rehab for Big Show. I want to say in the last 2 or 3 weeks, he kind of got a little bit of the herb on him over the New Year's break when Triple H won the title back with the way they treated him. But I feel like he's now stronger than he was before Survivor Series. Like he is cemented as a main eventer now. I feel like it's believable. It wasn't believable at Survivor Series. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, it's not a problem to get herb on you as long as you get the herbicide on pretty quick.
Yeah, agreed. And it shows that you could have so much herb in you.
Yeah.
But just a little spray of the herbicide, you're right back up.
That's right. I wish I would have known this before. This would be, because this is like the things that like I'm always love how like just all the lingo of pro wrestling, and I would have fucking pushed that one to be like, I don't know, he's got a lot of herb on him. We got to spray him with some herbicide, instead of like, he's got to get his heat back or whatever. That would have taken off. Yeah. We got to get some of that herbicide on him. It would have worked. Yeah.
I love it. Jerry Lawler's in the ring with all the divas, and he previews the Royal Rumble swimsuit competition this Sunday, which Jim Ross chimes in and says it's the first ever Royal Rumble. Like they made a big deal to say this is the first ever Miss Royal Rumble swimsuit competition.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, like, what is the, not that it takes a genius to figure it out, but like the thought process behind this in the sense of it's like, okay, we have the paper, because it seems like this was put together not quite last minute, but it's like, how are we going to follow up last month's headline stealing bit with the women?
What was last month's headline stealing bit again?
The mud pool or whatever, where Miss Cat revealed herself.
So somehow, and I don't know who, and someone got into Vince's ear, or somehow he either saw the movie or someone, maybe it was Kevin, and somehow someone said, oh, that, I think, what is it? Something About Mary, where it had like the boob gimmick. So that was what, so I was like, I heard there's this movie, Something About Mary. There's the boob gimmick, and someone showed him a picture of something. It's all, we're going to get Mae Young in one of those, and she's going to reveal it at the pay-per-view. So that was which is great because that's your end spot. So that was quickly like, okay, well then it's got to be an evening gown thing that turns into fucking schma. Nothing matters other than somehow in that she's going to get pulled on. It's going to reveal the gimmick, and was like, okay. And so someone was off, making the gimmick for her. And
I love it. Oh, okay. So this was all like, this was a very calculated move. Yeah. Like
absolutely. Yeah. Which is great because it's one of those things where like, great. There's an end point and not, a beginning point of like, where is this going? It's like, so there you go.
The writing of this is setting up like a Sting return almost. And let me explain why. So Lawler's in the ring with all the divas, and Mae Young and Moolah are not there. It's all like, Terry, BB, Ivory, Luna, Jackie. I don't believe Tori was in, or was she? I don't quite. I don't think she was.
I don't think she was.
Lawler shows a copy of the centerfold in Raw magazine, which WWE was so hot that they had not one monthly periodical. They had 2 monthly periodicals at this point, WWE Magazine and Raw Magazine, which was a little hotter, a little steamier. And it was like a Maxim, proto Maxim type thing. Mm-hmm. And so the centerfold is Terry in a swimsuit. And Lawler asks if she's going to be wearing something similar to this. She says yes or whatever. And then he asks the cat what she'll be wearing. And she says, oh, you remember Armageddon? Oh, of course. Great review. And she says, I'm going to go even bigger. And then this part I love. Ivory grabs the mic. She says, Jerry, you're a pervert. Both Jerry and Jim Ross on commentary at the same time go, yeah? So what's your point?
Yeah.
I love the voice of Ivory in this whole last few minutes. She goes, she's not going to take part of this TNA smut show. I'm a wrestler. And I love that Jackie grabs the mic and she says, hey, if we have to do this shit, you got to do it too, Ivory. We don't want to do this. A whole schmaz ensues. And it's all chaos. And then, like I said, like the Sting moment, we were talking about Jim Johnston. You hear the piano notes of, and it's Mae Young, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's Sting, but it's Mae Young, and she's over there, and she does her slow walk up the ramp. And as the girls get out of the ring because they're fighting, Mae Young says finally she's going to give her fans what they want. She's going to show them the puppy.
Yeah.
And everyone freaks out. Like nobody wants to see this. Oh my God, this is just some of the best.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And I love all the reactions of the women.
Yeah. It was just like, a merry-go-round of facials. Like just fucking unbelievable. It was one of those things too, where I remember, okay, we'll work towards that. And then like here, and then this just, I was like, holy shit, that worked just like, it's a weird thing because it's like, oh, the evening gala match. Oh, they're pissed about not being wrestlers and this. And they're like, well, fuck. This goddamn thing segment works so fucking good. None of this shit's going away. Not even close. I mean, my goodness. Oh boy.
So good. So good. You really lucked in so big with Mae Young. I feel like she's a one of a kind talent, like so much to do with her.
Yeah, once in a lifetime. Well, it's a long lifetime. Well.
We have Acolytes against DX. Before the match, you do the stereotypical Raw the backstage walk, and the way the Acolytes are shot with the low angle, they look like fucking beasts. They're like, I really noticed it here. I don't know, like you've done a great job here of pushing the Acolytes into the upper mid card.
Well, pretty easy. Like, well, here they are, slowly walking down the ramp. Great job, everyone.
like taking up the whole screen. Yeah. Their fucking barrel chests.
Yeah.
The Royal Rumble is brought to you by 1-800-COLLECT, we learn.
Yeah.
There's a whole industry that completely collapsed thanks to cell phones, which is the collect calls. I wonder if you could, I guess you could probably still do a collect call, but you'd have to find a payphone to do so. Right?
Yeah.
Like who
I don't even know. Yeah. Bizarre. Remember those George Carlin, commercials?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about George Carlin. Yeah, I remember Mr. T was a big.
I saw George Carlin once and he said and he was just bagging on advertising. And then he goes, oh, by the way, if you, wonder why I'm bagging on advertising and all this stuff, but still do those 1-800-COLLECT commercials, I'm going to let you fucking figure that out for yourself. Just like pretty good.
So the match with DX and the Acolytes doesn't even happen. The Outlaws come out almost instantly and attack them, as Triple H teased at the top of the show. Which, it's like, look, they have a match on Sunday. There's no need. No one needs to get hurt. No one needs to lose their shit. So this clean finish smart mark is fine with this. This was an angle. We see a very young Michael Cole in San Antonio to report on Steve Austin's surgery. He was under the knife by Dr. Youngblood, who gave a little press conference and said that the surgery was a success, and Youngblood is confident that Austin could return to wrestling. So some good news for WWE fans and for Vince, I'm sure.
Sure.
Top money guy.
And always like a thing, always good to get like any kind of like real surgery, it just gives that authenticity, like real surgery. Doctors love to be interviewed, shit like that.
The press conference shot was a little limp, I have to admit, though, because it was just like him and one mic and then like these two tiny x-rays behind him.
Yeah.
Could have dressed that up a little more. But that was the time.
Or not even tried.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have been better, but yeah.
Backstage, DX is celebrating, softening up the Acolytes. Road Dogg says Rock and Big Show can't get along, and they're going to get an ass whooping tonight. The Rock is interviewed. At first, he congratulates Steve Austin on a successful surgery. He hopes Austin is back to fishing, drinking, and most importantly, ass whooping soon. Very nice. No, even not even trying to get himself over. Yeah, just being respectful of Austin. Then he turns his attention to the Big Show. Kevin Kelly asks if The Rock will take back calling the Big Show a jabroni, seeing as how offended Big Show was by this. And The Rock goes, yes, I will take it back. Big Show is not a jabroni. Oh, okay, great. Wonderful. What the Big Show is a 7-foot, 500-pound steaming pile of grade A monkey crap. Calls him a jabroni again, spells out jabroni, says he wants him to stand on the apron and do what the Big Show does best, and does like a doofy choke slam thing. Great promo by The Rock. And a great setup for this main event, because both guys are essentially saying, I hate this other guy and I'm not going to work with him, and you better stay out of my way while I kick the New Age Outlaws ass.
Yeah. And frankly, it's like, he's so over. He says stuff, whatever, but like steaming pile of monkey crap, like, okay, I wouldn't have wanted to end on that. You know what I mean? It's fine and it's whatever, but that fucking mimicking was so good. It was like so just like humorous, and there's nothing more, heat seeking than like just mimicking someone like that. You know what I mean? It's like, that is just wait, he called me a steaming pile of monkey crap. So what? But he went like, ooh, like that's like, oh, that's heat seeking. So it was a great button, so to speak.
Agreed. Jericho's backstage getting ready to fight Rikishi. He granted Rikishi an IC title match. We have Jeff Hardy versus Bubba Ray Dudley setting up their pay-per-view match. And this is an athletic back and forth match. Both guys are young. Both guys want to prove that they should be on the show. TV time is limited, and they made the best use of their time. Clean finish here. Jeff Hardy wins with a swanton. I was very happy with that. The right person won. And then Devon immediately attacks Jeff Hardy. 3Ds on both Hardys. They get a table. They put Jeff on the table and powerbomb Matt through it. Now, you might think, geez, did they make the Hardys look like jobbers? No, I don't think so. You're just setting up this excellent, legendary tables match that happens at the Rumble, which was career making for the Hardys. I think it was like the first time people saw them on this big scale after that career making ladder match they had a few months before. But this is in the Garden, So it was a very big moment for them.
And this was fun. I always this was one thing it's not even something I enjoyed doing, which was like, oh, I love when they have that shot of Bubba, after he throws someone through a table. So I did get with Ross and say hey, you know what? In the production meeting, you should really sell that more, where it's like, my God, it puts him into some kind of trance. Is, this psychotic weirdo, he goes to some place, and really milking that. So that became a good, you're always looking for anything to be like, oh, he throws someone through a table, and it's like, oh, I'm I'm in an orgasmic fucking zone. So I think that, starting to put that in that sick weirdo loves inflicting, punishment so much. Puts him in a trance.
That was peak JR, that kind of stuff. And also, he's so great at emoting true disgust.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for that.
And it's always funny when you're in like you like ask him something or tell him something like that or suggest something like that. So then he'd be like, oh yeah, that's good. He writes it down and then later, my God, it's just like, he's so calm about it. And then like later he's like, he's in some kind of a trance. Like always makes me happy.
I love this setup here. The Hollies can't believe that Chris Jericho set up accepted a match with Rikishi. Like, why do the Hollies care? Like, and then after the commercial, Chyna equally pissed. Well, it makes sense because she's co-champion with Jericho.
Right.
She's upset that Jericho took the match. We learn that Halftime Heat returns in a few weeks during the Super Bowl. Were you excited to book Halftime Heat?
Yeah, it's a good idea. I don't know what, it's obviously these things all grew out of like, maybe it was, what was like a first thing was like, there was a Puppy Bowl. Someone came up with a great idea, like, fuck, no one watches anything, but during halftime, we'll start a thing. And just, or the Puppy Bowls, I think went on during the Super Bowl. But there was something back in the day. And then I don't know when they started actually building up the halftime shows for this, Super Bowl. So everyone had to watch them with Prince and what have you. Maybe that wasn't happening yet, but it was like a good thing. We're like, oh, people watch the Super Bowl, but they don't give a fuck about the halftime still laying. So good idea.
Yeah, it's interesting that, there was a moment where the halftime show sucked. Now it's like that's the highest, almost usually one of the highest rated moments of the
now
game.
They even make it longer,
Yeah.
It's like usually our halftime's 20 minutes, but I think for the Super Bowl, a whole half hour or something. Yeah.
Rikishi comes out with Too Cool, tells him to go to the back. He's serious. Jericho comes out. He has the mic, says he's defending the title because he's an honorable champion. All right. Stop questioning him. As for you, Rikishi, Fatu, Rakashichi, I think he called him, Fatu. I'm a dancing machine and I can teach you a few moves, but first I'm going to kick your ass, he says. Rikishi dominates the match. This match was essentially a showcase for how dominant and scary Rikishi is, which I really like. How this push that you've been giving him these last few weeks to really establish him as someone, knocking on the main event door. There's a ref knockdown. Then Rikishi's about to do the bonsai drop. Hollies come out and try to stop him. Rikishi fights them off. Rikishi goes for his slam finish. He has Jericho up. Chyna runs down behind him and gives him a low blow. Rikishi drops Jericho. Jericho and Chyna argue. In the interim, Rikishi gets up and clotheslines both of them. Then he gives Chyna a belly to belly, and he's about to give a bonsai to Chyna, but the Hollies run out with chairs and hit Rikishi in the back. There's a lot going on here. And then finally, the ref calls for the DQ, and Too Cool come out to save Rikishi. Crash gets left in the ring as Hardcore flees, and he takes Rikishi's slam finisher.
And thousands of schmaz finish smart marks are thrilled.
A lot of schmozzes on this episode. I guess it's the Rumble season.
It's the Rumble season, and again, it's all good for like them. Like when the Rumble's assembled, like, oh, what's happening in our storylines? Well, you came out this, I'm mad. You know what I mean? It's just it's fuel for them to all the agents to just work on stuff. And even though that's what's better about these pre-schmaz, especially for the Rumble. It's not just like, oh, that just got them out of something that they booked themselves into a corner. It all can move forward, and you don't even know where it's going, because that's what's fun about pro wrestling and this organization at the time. Like, give all this to the agents and whatever, and like see what's going to come out of it in the Rumble. You know what I mean? And then your storylines, because half your booking is like, oh, what's happening? Oh, this happened live. Let's extrapolate on it and move forward. So that makes me a schmaz finish smart mark.
I like a good schmaz as much as anyone, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
So I got no problem with that. And I just love the word schmaz. It's a great word.
Yeah.
It really explains.
It's almost as good as kerfuffle, but
I like this backstage segment with Cactus Jack and Big Show. Cactus Jack is very non-confrontational, just being like, let me give you a friendly piece of advice. You should you get beyond these issues with The Rock. I'm just saying the people you're in the ring with are a high level of competition, so you got to be careful. And Big Show was respectful and was like, all right, I'll take it into consideration. Kane comes out. And Tori is just chewing his ear off. You could hear like, oh my God, you can't hear it, but you see her animated, just going off on Albert. This match was very quick, as it should be. It's getting late. Kane makes quick work of Albert. 1, 2, 3, boss man watching backstage. Albert gets on the mic as he's defeated and says, Kane, obviously you like to be dominated by a woman, and so do I.
Yeah.
So do I. So playing into the BDSM stuff, I guess.
Yeah, that sadly didn't go nearly where it should have, in my humble opinion.
I feel like there just wasn't enough public knowledge of BDSM at the time. It's too underground at the moment. Not like now.
Yeah. Not like it had a several 100-year history of England and fucking spankings and fucking 17th century France or whatever. Never mind.
Oh,
damn it.
Oh, a BDSM smart mark over here.
Yeah.
There we have a parallel segment with Cactus Jack talking to The Rock, also trying to give him advice on working together with the Big Show, and asks him not to call Big Show a jabroni. It's like your dad coming over, like, could you be nice?
Yeah. Yeah.
And The Rock says he agrees to get along with the Big Show during the match, which is a very important asterisk here. During the match, he promises to get along. The one thing I find notable about this segment, which would never happen today, is you found like the copy room or something. You shot this at like there's a Xerox machine behind them. It's like the set is not decorated at all. Like this is so like such a last minute. Hey guys, let's grab you and just go find the first room and shoot this really quick.
And you might shit on that, and maybe rightfully so in this particular one. But when you do hang out in the arena backstage, so to speak, at wrestling, that's where all the shit happens. Mm-hmm. You see people going over stuff. It's in a fucking hallway. It's under a fucking big weird pipe. It's all, you know what I mean? That is the actual home base, if you will. When you go to some arena, where are we? New Haven. Oh, here's our Xeroxes. Oh, trainer this way. Cafeteria, catering this way. Vince's office this way. Xerox, old school, taped up pieces of paper, long folding tables. That is the actual place. So why, shy away from it? Mm-hmm. Although, copying machine, why not? And sometimes it's like, fuck it, do it here now. And then sometimes you just look later and like, oh yes, we could have just went 4 feet that way. It would have been better. It's over. It only hurts for a minute. Fuck it. No one would have known 25 years later who thought of that copying machine in the background.
Schrodinger's copy machine. It's going to come back.
Yeah, it's going to come back for us set dressing smart marks.
It's main event time. Big Show comes out. His hair is very frizzy. Very frizzy. And as mentioned, Big Show and Rock get into it before the match starts. So he kept his promise to Cactus Jack. The Rock knocks the Big Show to the outside, and Big Show basically stays out there the whole match as the Outlaws work over the Rock.
True.
Actually, this match goes longer than I assumed it would. And then eventually Show pulls out the Rock, knocks him down, and then Show goes in and tries to clean house. Show gets thrown into the ropes. Rock hits him with a chair, allowing Billy Gunn to get the pin on the Big Show. After the match, Rock gives Big Show the people's elbow to send the crowd home happy. If you think about it, the Rock is kind of being a heel right now, but the crowd is eating it up.
Well, also, but the Rock has never, as I said, it's the age of the tweener. The Rock has never shied away from doing, you know what I mean? It's totally in character. So not, he's never someone to be like, the fact his thing to Austin is probably the nicest he's ever been to anyone ever.
Right.
It's fine. Plus great wrinkles leading into the Rumble,
Yeah.
Many subplots and little B stories and little animosities.
I'm very hyped for this Rumble. I'm kind of upset that we still have the SmackDown to get through.
Yeah.
I want to watch this Rumble already. So you've done, I can only imagine how great it felt week to week if like this is how into it I am now. watching it 25 years later, knowing what's about to happen. Maybe it's because I know how great some of these matches end up being. This is an all-time pay-per-view.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm excited for two. I forget where this SmackDown was. Probably was it
maybe Philly? If it was,
so somewhere close, I'm sure.
Right. A few notes from the Observer. WWF is working on a string of 6 straight sellouts, which started at the probably the Continental Airlines Arena is next in Jersey, and which is the former Meadowlands. I guess it doesn't exist anymore. And
then it was the Brendan Byrne for a bit too, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the next 6 shows are all sold out, which is a crazy stat. We learned that Randy Orton, the 19-year-old son of Bob Orton, who is 6'4.5" and 250 pounds, just signed a development contract. I wonder what ends up happening for that guy.
Yeah.
And then there was a bit of ratings news that I wanted to read because, we're always talking about how the business goes and how
business.
It's business. But like when you see it on paper, it's really insane. So here's what he writes. For the previous week, there wasn't much new or surprising when it came to the ratings. Raw drew a 6.56 rating, which is unheard of nowadays. 6.3 for the first hour, 6.81 for the second, and a 9.9 share, which means almost 1 out of 10 people watching cable were watching Raw. That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It really made cable, just ridiculous.
Nitro drew a 3.38 rating, which now WCW is now in the dumps, and they're still drawing a 3.38 rating. WWE would kill for that. They're doing like a 1.9 or a 2 or something like that.
3.3. NHL plus Colbert and Fallon all at the same time would fucking like that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's like unbelievable.
And their share was 4.7. So even still, 1 out of 20 people watching cable are watching WCW. And over the head-to-head 66 minutes of programming, it was 3-3. And here was something really interesting that he noted. Once again, while the WWF's rating did increase in the unopposed hour, the switchover factor was surprisingly small, and the WWF second hour numbers, and thus overall numbers, while at close to record pace, they're actually doing almost similar numbers going opposed both hours over the spring and summer, aren't the windfall giant numbers that should have happened. Only about 15% tops of the audience watching Nitro switched to Raw at the conclusion of the Nitro main event. So that's really interesting that, like, at this point now, all the casuals, you've sucked them out of WCW. Yeah. What's truly left are fans who just don't like the WWF product and only care about or are just longtime WCW loyalists.
Yeah, and some of these breakdowns depress me just because it's really it's easy when things where the numbers are like, top-sided. It's like, just keep doing what you're doing. Then when it starts to break down into like quarter hours and how do we sneak this? And it starts to get into that. It's not a clean way to look at it because a lot of times like we need to do something here. And in the wrestling business, there's a term called hot shotting, which kind of is in all entertainment, like do everything now, get it, but it's like, no, that doesn't work. You got to build, suspense. And so sometimes it seems like, oh shit, when things get too close, it's like, how can we spike this quarter hour? And how can we do this? And the tidal wave effect of like thinking like that takes away people's motivation. It becomes very fatiguing. And it's just it's a hard way to look at, producing this shit. And kind of in some ways, the beginning of the end of wanting to work there a little bit, I would say.
One last rating note. The previous SmackDown, the one with the Cactus Jack reveal, drew the second largest rating in history, trailing only the Arnold show that happened a few months ago, which we, of course, reviewed. And that show was headlined, of course, by Triple H and X-Pac vs. Rock and Big Show with a 5.0 overall rating. And they did a 6.2 and a 9 share in the top 40 markets. That's crazy.
It's huge, yeah.
And the Thunder on Wednesday night drew a 2.62. Again, these are wild numbers for nowadays.
And you started to see it with like, hey, there's Barry Diller who owned USA Network's backstage. It's like just looking at the numbers, like holy smokes, like, and we'll talk about that more with this Royal Rumble pay-per-view, because then you see it's almost like a coming out party for pro wrestling is always looked down upon, for TV and entertainment within New York. But this one in particular was like, hey, can you get me seats? Hey, oh my God. Like, the amount of celebrities and what have you. Like, well, I've always loved wrestling.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'm very excited. We of course have the SmackDown and then the Royal Rumble. So it's going to be an exciting 2 weeks. TFTattitudeera@gmail.com. Please send us some feedback, please.
Woo!
Woo-hoo! And give us a follow on our social medias. We share reels from the show.
Subscribe! Subscribe!
And we'll be talking to you very shortly on Tales from the Attitude Era.